Hi, everybody. Welcome to Winsight Live. I'm Jon Springer in New York. I'm here with Kat Martin, Winsight Grocery Business Content Director in Chicago, Brett Dworsky of CSP, also in Chicago, Winsight Grocery Business's Editor-in-Chief, Jenn Strailey in Denver, and as always, the supermarket guru, Phil Lempert in Santa Monica. Phil, big news. I'm getting a haircut today for the first time since late February. What's on my mind as New York begins kind of phase two reopening. However, it's not such great news for coronavirus everywhere else in the country.
Absolutely. And here in LA and in all of California, we continue to see the cases rise. I cheated and I did get a couple haircuts along the way. But but it isn't good news, and there's some more things that are coming out that are not great news either. We're going to talk a lot about food prices on Thursday with Stu Leonard Jr. He's going to be a special guest for us, so make sure you tune in to that. 12:30 Eastern time, 9:30 Pacific time. Stu is also going to take some of your questions as well. But from Axios comes a report that Americans on average are spending 182 extra per month on groceries and 121 more on utilities while working from home during the pandemic than they otherwise would have. The extra costs were not made up with savings on gas, which was only $33, and childcare only $34. However, I do have some other good news. Toilet paper sales, according to Nielsen, the growth has officially ended. After weeks of slowing growth, the dollar sales of toilet paper are now down 0.6% year over year for the 1 week period ending 6/13/20. I'm still not able to buy Charmin, so I'm a little upset with that. Nielsen has also sent us over some data. Let's put up a chart that shows the increase in the sales of prices from January 4th, where it was under 2%, to last week, June 11th week ending, where prices are up just about I think it's 7.7%. And the question is whether or not that's going to rise. One last price story, and I know Jenn is going to be very upset about this one. About 11 years ago, a fight started between Boeing, the aircraft builder, and Airbus, the aircraft builder. You might be wondering why this is going to affect our foods, but it's going to send food prices through the roof. In fact, the Federal Register today opens up the title of this, and when you read this, you've got to laugh. Request for the Office of Management and Budget to provide emergency clearance of a new collection of information titled Large Civil Aircraft Dispute Portal. So what all that translates to is this fight started about 11 years ago, and what the office has declared, and it's opening up for comments today, and everybody should go on this and comment, is that the aircraft subsidy is going to be paid to the tune of $25 billion by adding tariffs from 25% to 100% on over 400 products, none of which are airline-based. The products include cheese, olives, coffees, fruits, pastas, pork, wines, liquors, jams, seafood and fish, olive oil, and yogurt, to name just a few. What this means, Jenn, is 25% tariff on wine, 100% tariff on Pecorino Romano cheese. What do you think that's going to do to retailers?
Yeah, I'm not happy about this one, Phil, as you predicted. You know, already we're paying so much more at the grocery store that I see it myself. The prices have gone up so much, and I think to myself, well, I'm not going to go to 3 more stores like I would have before the pandemic, so I'm just going to pay the extra price. But gee, wine has been something that people could lean on during the pandemic when they're at home with nothing else to do. So it's unfortunate.
Yeah, and this is going to affect the imports to the U.S. from 26 different countries in the European Union. And, it's amazing to me. This fight has gone on, as I mentioned, for about 11 years. On April 12th of 2019 is when the office trade representative listed all these products. And when you look at importers in this country, and I've talked to a bunch of them, whether it be a cheese importer or a huge importer like Atlanta that does everything, they're panicking. Their prices are going to go up. Are you going to go, and Kat, I don't know, Chicago's a great Italian market for Italian foods. Are you going to go pay $28 a pound for Pecorino Romano at Jewel?
Probably not.
Yeah.
But I do wonder if this does open up some opportunity for, the California wineries or, California dairies or Wisconsin dairies, if, they might be seen. I mean, they already get a lot of sales and have some really good name recognition, but maybe this is an opportunity for them to get their presence out there more to, say we're local, we're made here, and we're cheaper.
Yeah, in the case of wine, that might be correct. It depends on, what kind of wine, but keep in mind the California wine industry is just about 5 or 6% of the global wine. So they probably can't even produce enough to make up for this. And when it comes to cheeses, again, I'll use the example Pecorino Romano, that could only be made in
Yep.
one part of Italy. Same thing with, a lot of the meats and so on, because they've got a standard of identity. So the question that you bring up is a great one. Will consumers switch from their favorites based on price? What do you think, John?
Well, I mean, look, it'll make whatever comes out even rarer, and so for special occasions, let's splurge on the good French wine and the best cheese we can. But for everyday consumption, those things might see some unfortunate downswings in popularity here in the U.S. And I guess there's opportunity, right? This is a comment period. I'm sure the cheese
Absolutely
is going to come at it full guns blazing, and so we'll see how all this works out. But the whole backbeat of the tariffs thing has really been a kind of a overhang on the whole industry for the last couple of years now, and so we'll have to see how it works out. For us, look, we're not buying the best French wines anyway, at this time. So, maybe if it's going to happen, maybe this.
But these aren't only for the best French wines. I mean, these are like the Italian Ruffino wines that sell for $12 a bottle.
Oh yeah, understood.
$14 a bottle. So it's all of that.
Yeah.
And so we can't take imports on food from anywhere because our borders are closed.
Your mic knocked out, and so yeah, we totally agree. And like Kat said, it's going to be I think an opportunity for alternate suppliers to kind of get their business out there. I'm sorry, Phil, can you check your mic? Yeah, sure. So Phil's got a little bit of problems here with his microphone. In the meantime, we've got a couple other things to talk about. We were just on the subject of adult beverages. Kat had a interesting article that was published at Winsight Grocery Business this week that talked a little bit about alcohol consumption trends during coronavirus crisis. Kat, what do we find out there?
Yeah, so I mean, it's no surprise that with restaurants being closed, bars being closed, supermarkets, grocery stores saw an uptick in alcohol sales. Their sales were actually booming, pretty much as, I think Jen and I have done our parts to contribute to sales in supermarkets during this coronavirus, because we couldn't go out anywhere else. But the one part that I found interesting, and a lot of people made this point to me, that even though sales in supermarkets are booming, there's no reason to be concerned that we're all turning into a bunch of alcoholics, because overall consumption has actually been down. So even though we feel like we're buying a lot of wine to take home, we're actually consuming less than we would when we were going out to dinner or out for drinks after work. So that made me feel a little bit better that I'm not quite as bad as I thought I was. But it was just a really interesting dichotomy. And, one of the retailers I was talking to doesn't foresee this slowing down, even as restaurants start to reopen. I think we've seen in a lot of our locations that there are a lot of people who are still going out once restaurants and bars reopen, but just as many are still staying home. And they're kind of congregating in their little groups that they feel comfortable with. So, summer barbecues will happen. So they'll still be buying from the supermarkets. It's just going to be within their, their group of 10 people or whatever.
Right. I mean, that's sort of what we've seen here in New York. There's gatherings and it's intensely local. So your people are hanging out at their corners and that kind of thing. And with the markups that the drinks get in the on-premise channel, that's one of the ways I guess Americans are saving money to pay for the more expensive groceries that they're seeing in stores.
Yeah, but John, I thought that Governor Cuomo said that people were not distancing, that the restaurants were packed too much, and so on, and that continued. What they were going to do is basically shut down the restaurants again. What's the update on that?
Yeah, again, I'm sort of limited to what I see. Look, as you walk around town, you'll see places that look like they're probably flouting the restrictions, and people are a little bit too close together. You can't eat, you can't drink with a mask on. Things get a little bit weird. And like I said, my local pub right here up the street, has not opened its dining room yet, but they did put out a couple of tables last week. And so we see people gathering there. I've also seen, some police at the corner, and, they're keeping an eye on things. Look, hopefully, this isn't, too bad of a crackdown. And on the other hand, people don't abuse this, these returning privileges, so to speak.
So starting yesterday here in Santa Monica on Main Street, what they've started to do is they're restriping the lanes for cars and bike lanes. And what they're actually doing is allowing space for the restaurants to put more tables outside, because most of the restaurants here do not have outdoor areas. So probably in the next 2 or 3 days, Main Street in Santa Monica will just have one lane, one direction, one lane the other direction, one bike lane, and have a lot of tables and chairs distanced outside. And the good news is that we're getting into the nicer weather. I guess the question is this going to happen in Chicago, in Denver? What do you guys think?
Yeah, it's already happening in Colorado and in Denver. As soon as we're reopening, they've closed some streets. Actually, Denver closed some streets to allow more pedestrian access before they even extended that to restaurants.
Yeah, it's happening in Chicago too. I know, especially in the suburbs, a lot of them have kind of closed a block or two of their commercial district type streets, so restaurants can put tables all along the street and not allow the cars through. So
very same thing we're seeing here in New York. As a beer drinker and a bike rider, that's a good thing.
Yeah, I noticed the same in Chicago too.
Yeah, so Brett, I have a question for you. I got early this morning some Nielsen data on C-store sales, that they're well above pre-COVID levels. The latest week plus 7%. On units, half-year cigarette volumes improved to -3% versus -9%. So to Jen and Kat's point about drinking more wine, I guess more people are smoking as well. Alcohol remains elevated. Alternate tobacco, namely vape, continues to worsen, -18% versus -10%. And this is all C-stores. Are you seeing the same thing?
Yeah. So once the pandemic hit right out of the gate, C-store operators saw a surge in tobacco and alcohol beverage sales, which was really interesting. And it almost appeared like, people were stocking up on their packs of smokes just because so they would have them in case they have to stay home 24/7. And multiple operators actually told us that instead of people coming in buying a pack of smokes, they were buying, multiple packs at a time. So that seems to have been the case over the past couple of months, and it's interesting that it has still sustained.
So, John, you commented that Albertsons IPO might happen as quick as this Friday.
That's what I hear. And we've been covering this, from well, look, Albertsons IPO has been a story that's been going on for about 7 years.
Yeah.
This is the third attempt that they've really made since the Reform Group acquired Safeway. At first, they went to market saying, "Hey, we're a great consolidator. We brought in Safeway. Look how great. We've improved the stores that we've acquired from Super Value and Safeway." But the market didn't like, one, the debt situation at Albertsons, and they didn't like that the Whole Foods Amazon thing kind of blew up the entire market. So Albertsons went back. They reportedly made a run at acquiring Sprouts. Definitely made a run at acquiring Rite Aid, which were both sort of means for them to do sort of a reverse merger, buy a public company, become public. And as we know, the Rite Aid shareholders didn't like that. Look, all those failed attempts have really kind of played into this latest thing where Albertsons is going to market now saying our comps are up 30%, our gross profit margins at 30%, which is like ridiculously high for the industry right now, conventional supermarkets in particular. I mean, they couldn't have a better story going in. And you know what? To the extent they learned a few things for the first time they went through, they cut their debt down by a couple of $1 billion in the last couple of years. And so they definitely have a stronger financial profile. They've got a lot of momentum from the COVID sales. And, when the coronavirus struck, I thought this was a death knell for them a third time, but really it's turned out to be its greatest ally here. And my sense is that they'll begin trading as soon as late this week.
And the question will be, what happens in 6 months from now when the numbers are not at 30%, gross profit and so on, and what happens? So, Jen, what's going on with Trader Joe's in Seattle? There's a big controversy there, right?
Yeah, and there are really two sides to this story. A group of workers at the Capitol Hill, Seattle location created a petition and a website. They got like 22,000 signatures on this petition in a 24-hour period. And they were petitioning to reopen the store, which closed on June 12th, when more than a dozen employees had told management that they wanted to protest alongside, a Black Lives Matter group. And management had given approval for that, but then ultimately realized that they were not going to have enough staff to keep the store open. So they closed the store, but the workers felt that they were being punished for participating in this protest. And then we heard from Trader Joe's yesterday that, their side of the story is that this was a store that already had a lot of security and safety issues and needed a remodel. And so when they closed for the workers to be able to participate in the protest, they decided to keep the store closed to do these remodels, enhanced security cameras and the like. And actually, over the weekend, some riots turned deadly in that neighborhood. So clearly there's an ongoing issue there.
So, and I don't know if they revealed this, but did they pay their workers who were demonstrating and pay the workers that were basically not allowed to work because the store was being remodeled, or everybody was on their own nickel?
Yes, well, that was a curiosity, because the workers through the website were claiming that this was a financial hardship for them, that they were not being insinuating that they were not being compensated. But Trader Joe's said that they are continuing to pay all of those employees, their regularly scheduled hours during the store's closure, and it will reopen on July 1st.
July 1st. So we'll see what's going on there. So Brett, what do you have for us today?
So I'm going to talk about Yeswe. And for those unfamiliar with Yeswe, they're a very young convenience store chain. They were founded in 2015, but they are one of the fastest growing convenience store chains in the United States right now. And here at CSP, we just launched our annual Top 202 series, which is our annual list of the 202 largest convenience store chains in the country by store count. And
sorry, Brett, why is it 202 versus 200, or why is it 202?
Top 202's got a good feeling off the tongue, don't you think?
Okay, got it. Okay, just wondered if there was more to it than that.
No,
Okay.
yeah, top 202.
Okay.
So Yeswe is only 5 years old, and so to put things into perspective, last year they were number 43 on the list, and now they are number 17 on the list.
Wow.
So just in 1 year, they've taken that huge jump. In November of last year, they acquired Allsups, which was another convenience store chain, and they acquired about 300 of their stores. And then in 2016, when they really bursted onto the scene, they acquired 150 stores throughout a handful of states. So I recently spoke with their CEO, Tom Turkla, who gave me an update on the Allsups acquisition and kind of where they're at. But we also spoke about, how has the pandemic really impacted their goals and their growth. And he basically told me it hasn't really hindered them. Turkla told us, CSP, earlier this year that their goal is to surpass the 600 store mark within the next few years. And so Turkla told me the other day that goal is still on track, even though the pandemic has really created these industry-wide financial losses.
What states are they operating in?
So Yeswe they are based out of West Des Moines in Iowa. And so they operate in a handful of states. They are in, I'm trying to think with the new acquisition. So their first acquisition was they acquired 10 country stores from Come and Go. And then in February of 2018, they acquired some stores in Texas and Missouri. And then the big acquisitions a handful of years ago, they expanded to, I believe, Oklahoma, Kansas, Nebraska, South Dakota, Wyoming. So they're in a handful of states, and they are growing insanely fast. So basically, sorry, go ahead.
What makes them special?
That's a great question. They're a really innovative company. They're putting a lot of efforts into their food program, and then they were also putting a lot of efforts into CBD. And so obviously CBD has been the talk of the town in retail over the past couple of years now. So they're just a really innovative company, and since they're young, they're really doing what they can to stay ahead. And so all in all, with a big initiative, Turkla told me recently that they're planning to spend more than $20 million over the next year in real estate upgrades for those Allsup stores that they acquired at the end of last year. So lots of work on that front with Yeswe, and they're growing insanely fast.
So it's no surprise that some of the latest news is that Ocado is really going full steam ahead. What do you guys think?
Yeah, yesterday, shoppers in Vaughan, Ontario, which is nearby Toronto, could for the first time order a Voila, what they call, Sobeys calls its new shop at home offering that is powered by the first North American customer fulfillment center of Ocado, which, as we probably know, utilize advanced robotics and a unique design that its officials say can make home delivery of groceries profitable, which until now has pretty much been impossible to do. And so I think the eyes of the industry are going to be watching that very closely. It's interesting to note that typically they've been saying, Kroger's been saying 2 years after we announced this thing, we're going to have it open. The Sobeys timeline gives you an idea. They announced that in January of 2018. They're open today, so a little more than 2 years for that. Kroger's announcement, by the way, Sobeys announced about 5 months before Kroger in May of 2018. So let's say this time next year, maybe Kroger will be delivering out of Cincinnati.
It'll be interesting to see, and whether or not it becomes not only more robotic in the warehouse, but more robotic on the delivery side. And certainly, Elon Musk with Tesla, with autonomous driving cars, is really pushing hard for those autonomous trucks that you can't break the window, but lo and behold, you can break the window to see whether or not we're going to start to see those, going up and down the streets. So Jen, it's time for some more good news. What's up?
Yay. Well, I've got like a $500,000 worth of good news.
Yeah, great.
Hannaford is donating $250,000 to local farms, 250 local farms across New York and New England that were impacted by COVID-19. And the Fresh Market has announced that it's pledging $250,000 to the NAACP Legal Defense and Educational Fund.
That's great. I guess I'd like your take, and it's wonderful that these retailers are doing this. But I guess the initiative that Walmart announced a couple weeks ago that we talked about was $100 million. And certainly Fresh Market can't donate $100 million.
Right.
But are we going to get to the point where people are going to start comparing, consumers are going to start comparing numbers in choosing what retailers they're going to go to because of what retailers are doing to give back? Do you think that could happen?
I think once the pandemic is over, I think that those types of values, that, you know, things that are really important to people, social justice causes, animal welfare, all of that, I think that's all going to become, you know, be right back as, you know, more important than ever, when it's not a matter of, you know, Walmart, you can probably fill your basket less expensively than elsewhere, and right now money's tight. So
Okay. Well, thank you all for joining us today on Winsight Live. Don't forget Thursday, Stu Leonard Jr. will be with us 9:30 a.m. Pacific, 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time. All our archives of Winsight Live are on Winsight Live's Facebook page and website, and on Supermarket Guru Facebook page, and on Supermarket Guru Facebook. We've got to figure out how to shorten that ending. So until Thursday, when we see you again, be safe and be well.